All right, I'm pleased to introduce our next presenter, and his name is George Gobin. He's currently the Microsoft Regional Manager for Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, Belize, and Turks and Caicos. He's based in the Microsoft Regional Headquarters office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and is responsible for the growth of Microsoft's business in those countries, along with positioning Microsoft's role of citizenship in assisting both the public, educational, and private sectors. Prior to this, he was the general manager for the Microsoft West Indies regional office of Microsoft Corporation USA, and was based in the Microsoft Trinidad and Tobago office, headquarters in Port of Spain, Trinidad. He's had the experience of engaging with the Caribbean governments around their e-government strategies, and also consulting with top commercial organizations in the region that are involved in finance, energy, and telecommunications to discuss solutions and benefits around implementing Microsoft technology. Mr. Gobin is a national of Trinidad and Tobago and studied at UWI with mathematics and computer science. He has a diploma in systems analysis and design for the National Institute of Higher Research, Science and Technology. He's been working in the information technology field for the last 32 years and has had experience in all aspects of the IT industry and the management of people and companies. George is also a past president for 2 terms of the Information Technology Professional Society of Trinidad and Tobago. He's currently on the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Network Information Center Limited, which is the organization responsible for managing domain name allocations on the .tt internet domain. He was recently a director on the board of the National Library and Information Systems Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, and had been so for the last 12 years. Mr. Gobin was presented in February 2006 with a Caribbean Luminary Award by the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies for achievement and for supporting people's and educational projects in the Caribbean region. So now, without any further ado, please help me in welcoming Mr. George Gobin with his talk, The Technology Outlook, Cloud, and Mobility.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will try that again. Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, guys. Come on, you'll soon be out of here and back doing the things that you need to do on a Friday, preparing for the weekend. I put this slide up first to tell most of my students in here that contrary to what you may hear and read, employers like Microsoft, IBM, also the big players in the game, do read your Facebook accounts before you go for interviews, and they do look at the pictures and they do check your status. So in case you had any concerns about that, is something that you need to know about. Privacy is no longer privacy as we know it. I read in the newspaper recently, a member of a board in Trinidad and Tobago was fired from his position because of a Facebook rant that he did on a statement that somebody made. So my discussion today is going to be a little bit about cloud and mobility. I very much like this topic of the next big thing. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something called the Internet of Things. And what do we mean by the Internet of Things, and how is it going to affect the world of work? I'm going to play a video at the end that will show you where all of this technology is going. So I'm going to seize the moment to give anybody a chance to come closer up front to see the video properly, if it doesn't show well from the back of the room. If anybody believes that the world has not changed or is not changing, let me give you a few statistics. There are now more devices on the planet than people. That was not a metric or a statistic that I could have given you 3 to 5 years ago. There is no more data that we are creating that we as human beings can consume. Let's take a quick poll. How many of you in this room used an alarm clock to get up this morning? A couple of people. At the end of the slide, at the end of this presentation, I'll show you 10 things that will disappear from your lifetime, and the alarm clock is one of them. We're now consuming data, we are now creating data. The world is changing whether we like it or not. The Fortune 500 is a system that they use in the United States to decide how companies make the Fortune 500. Fortune 500 says that you have done the most revenue and you have the most stability in your company to grow for whatever period of time. Anybody wants to make a guess of the Fortune 500 companies in 1955? I know lots of you probably weren't born yet in 55. But anybody wants to make a guess how many companies from the Fortune 500 in 1955 are still around today? Give me a guess. Yes, sir. 10? Hold on, it's coming. 89% are gone. That means that 61 companies who existed in 1955 as Fortune 500 companies no longer exist today. 89%. What does that tell you? What does that metric tell you? That we're not investing as companies need to in terms of R&D. How do we improve on our business? And that's what we're looking for the students who are coming out in the next wave. You've got to be able to do this thing called R&D. That's why I love participating in this STEM conference every year. So before I tell you what's coming next, let's look at some of the trends. Microsoft, like other companies, we have to look at the trends in the industry in order to decide what software we're going to develop, what do people need. You've all heard about machine learning. Machine learning where machines are learning based on complex algorithms to process data and make decisions based on an algorithm that somebody has fed into that machine. So machine learning is something that we are seeing more and more of in the industry. Ubiquitous connectivity. Everywhere you go, you're looking for connectivity for your machines. Machines, the home appliance, everything is being connected. And if you go up to a conference room like this, or you come off the airport, or you come off your cruise ship, the first thing that you're looking for is connectivity, so you can say hi to the family back home, wish you were here, kind of conversations. When we were growing up in IT many years ago, when I had hair on my head and it was actually black, the consumer, we didn't make, the IT decisions were made in a computer room. It was people wearing white coats and you looked at them through their glass window, and that's what they talked about IT. Now we are having IT decisions being driven by consumers. The ball has gone from businesses back into the consumer, and the consumer is deciding what IT device, what technology they want to use back in the office. So there's a whole shift in the industry where consumers are helping us to guide what comes next. We've seen an ecosystem of computers from servers, desktops, devices and refrigerators. There's a computer everywhere. As I said, there are more devices on the planet now than people. We've seen some investments coming in natural interface interactions, meaning screens, touch screens, voice-activated technology, people who are just talking to walls that are made of screens as you go and getting information. And the video I'm going to show you is doing that. Social computing, we all are fans of Facebook and all the Twitters and Instagram things that are out there. Data explosion. Can you imagine that if we have more smart devices very soon that there are people on the planet. Each one of them have an IP address, and each one of them is generating data. What's going to happen to all that data that is being generated? Who's ever going to make use of that data? I have a son who goes to FIU, and he constantly asks me, Dad, what should I be doing when I leave school? I don't know why, but he's doing computer science. And he's telling, what should I do in my career? And I keep telling him that there are two careers that I see coming out of the industry that are very high profile right now. And I'll talk some more about this just now. Security, the security industry around the technology, and the second one would be business intelligence. Not the business intelligence we know today, the business intelligence of collecting and being able to trap all that data that is being generated by those devices in the years to come. And then we have cloud computing. How many people in here are using the cloud? Okay, maybe 10%, 15%. That's interesting. How many of us in here have an email account like Hotmail or Yahoo or Gmail? Okay, there's bad news for you. You are using the cloud. I have bad news for you. You are using the cloud. The cloud is basically where you don't have the application running on it. You have an application running on the device, but the data and everything else is stored somewhere in somebody else's premises that you have no idea where, and you don't care. So you are using the cloud. For those of us who grew up using BlackBerry devices, for example, and you didn't have a BlackBerry Enterprise server in your compound, your data was going back into a company called RIM in Canada. So you have been using the cloud, your data has been leaving this island, and I have many conversations with your governments and private sectors in these islands talking about privacy issues, data residency issues, and people who believe that we should store cloud data, data not in the cloud but in our islands. And I simply tell them, ladies and gentlemen, your data, even before we said the word cloud, was already outside of your country. In the Cayman Islands, I know, for example, that you have internet bandwidth issues based on the pipes that you have coming out. And people who don't want to use technologies in the cloud and insist that they will never use cloud technologies, ask them a very simple question. Do you know where your internet submarine cable goes when it leaves the Cayman Islands? The answer is, we don't know, we don't care. It's somewhere running under the sea. The answer is that one of your cables goes to Vero Beach in Florida. So the United States government, and I'm just calling them for an example because people have this negative image of the sand, if the United States government wanted your data coming from the Cayman Islands, you have already given them it whenever you use that internet system. So we could talk about those privacy issues and the cloud usage issues some more in some more lengthy conversations, but this is what is going on. I want to go back to this time because the next thing that I see coming is this thing called the Internet of Things. Anybody here know what IoT means? Internet of Things? Now you're afraid to ask, you're afraid to answer in case the answer is not correct. So let's talk about it a little bit. What is the Internet of Things? It's when we get to that stage where every device that we have is talking to another device, is talking to the internet, or talking to a human being. Let me rephrase that, or let me say it again. The Internet of Things is when our things, our devices that we use are talking to other devices, or talking to the internet, or talking to human beings. I see the day coming when we'll all possibly be walking around with chips in our wrists that identifies us. I shake your hand, and instantly your contact information is transferred to my chip. We no longer have to send Outlook addresses or keep phone messages or keep phone contact information because we are going to be connected by the Internet of Things. All of these devices are connecting to something, And again, they're generating and generating data. Now, when we generate that data, who's going to analyze it? We're getting to the stage where the Internet of Things, we're putting such technology into those devices that those devices are now starting to make decisions for us. I'll give you an example. Some of the smart cities that are being developed worldwide, Barcelona, parts of London, if there is a traffic accident on any of the streets, instantly the sensors on the streets or the cameras around pick it up, send it off to the internet, send it down into tracking stations, send it down into automobiles, and you will see something running across your screen, or you're getting on your smartwatch, your phone, or if you have the smart glasses, you see information being presented to you for a traffic accident that may be happening miles away from you, but will prevent you from getting to your destination on time. That's where it's headed. I've seen a refrigerator with the computer chip on the door that reads the barcode on the box of milk. Every time it goes, you put the box of milk back into the fridge, it reads the barcode. Every time you take out the box of milk and put it back in. The day you don't put the box of milk back in the fridge, the computer on the fridge adds that to your grocery list. If you set the parameter right, it will dial at the end of the week or the month your grocery list to the shopping center, and your goods will be delivered or you pick them up as much as you need. That's where we're getting to in terms of what we call the Internet of Things. We're seeing a lot of growth in the Internet of Things versus smart devices. I gave you some information about what we're looking at in terms of planning. This graph is not very clear, but the top, the green bar suggests Internet of Things devices that are being connected to each other, and the growth of the PC, smartphone, and the tablet market. This graph is in terms of billions of units. So when I say Internet of Things, I don't have to be talking about a device that you personally interact with, like a computer, a phone, or tablet. It could be a chip sitting in your glass of water, in your flower vase. And I'll show you some examples of that shortly. And then we come to this thing, why do we need all of this happening? Before the birth of the internet and before the way we started getting all that information, Intel put this information out that tells us what happens in an internet minute of time. And this is a 2014 slide, so it most likely has doubled by now. Just reading through some of these statistics, you will see during 1 minute of time, 47,000 application downloads were done, $83,000 of sales were made, 61,000 hours of music was downloaded, 20 million photos were viewed. These are amazing statistics, and you think that the internet is slow. Most likely you never have enough bandwidth. For those of us who grew up with things like dial-up modems and communicating by shouting each other, this is what's going on in the background. And we're putting in the infrastructure. Most of the companies, AT&T, Google is even putting in some infrastructure now to even further increase this. Homes in Singapore are being designed with fiber optic in the walls of the house because they know that this access to technology is what's coming next. So the world is now a giant network. We have different things that you would see like LinkedIn, Facebook. We see things like Instagram, and they all are networks among themselves. Where we are going next is that all of these networks are being connected. And one of the things that I need students specifically to be very careful about is that privacy, because we are bringing all that information together from all the networks, your privacy is shot. There is nothing called privacy anymore when you subscribe to all of networks. Because the world is becoming such a large network now that anything you post on one and you say, well, I'm just using Instagram, I don't use stuff like Facebook and stuff like that. The answer is absolutely not. you are identifiable across many ways. And that means that the entire world is now becoming really a giant network. I apologize for this slide, it's a little bit dark, but on my left, you will see how systems were developed long ago, meaning that we developed silos of information. We had the accounting department all sitting together in a company. We had the inventory people sitting together, and we developed silos in these organizations. But this is really what's happening now. We're having data come, we're hitting us from all directions, and we can no longer operate in what we call a hierarchical structure. We need to be operating in a networking structure. What's changing then? For those of you who remember how we used to get information long ago, we sent a telex off to our company, and 3 weeks later we would get a response. And we did business that way. Today, in this day and age of instant gratification, if you don't get a response within 1 hour, 30 seconds, you think that you're not dealing with the right people. So information which was scarce and hard to get by long ago, now we are suffering from an overabundance of information. Long ago, we used to have to compete with the guy sitting next door, or in the office, or next country, in order to win. Now the movement is that in order to win, we have to collaborate with each other. And you'll find that the software that is being developed now is all about collaboration. It's not about the PC being developed and one guy just using the PC and creating great stuff. There's a team of people collaborating with each other to do the great stuff. So what does this mean for students? The modern student, if you look at most of the major universities in Europe and the United States, you will see that they're always mobile, they're moving. They learn a lot more outside of the classroom environment than they're now learning within the classroom environment. You look at students, and I look at students walking into this campus, and you can see the collaboration that's going on. Groups of students are talking to each other. And I'm not saying they're talking anything about work or schoolwork or anything, but they are collaborating. And we as academics, teachers and stuff, we've got to make use of that, because the computer technology is also allowing, to make use of that facility in what we call the collaboration. We used to have a saying that in order to achieve work, you had to be at the office till 8 o'clock in the morning, and you had to leave at 5:30 in the afternoon. And we were measured by how much time we spent at work. We clocked in a card, we got there at 8 o'clock, and we clocked out when we were leaving. It didn't matter if we did any work during the day, we were at work. What the technology is now doing for us is that work is no longer a destination. Work can be done anywhere. You no longer have to go to the office to do work. 60% of the companies in the United States are now decreasing the real estate. They are allowing their employees to work from home, and they're getting more productivity out of the workforce. Because, believe it or not, the employees are working longer hours at home. In Microsoft, we've seen that we've gone from 3 floors in our building in Florida to 1.5 floors. We've got air conditioning, rent, power, all those kinds of things. And the other amazing side of the technology that's coming is that there are absolutely no telephones in our offices. And you say, wow, you're running a business and you don't have a telephone? Absolutely not. We don't use telephones or the handset type devices. I have a great computer on my desk. It's a tablet, it's a laptop computer. It has a camera in it, it has a microphone in it, it has speakers in it. Earphones. Why would I need a phone? So this is what we are seeing in the industry, that people are starting to make use of the technology and allowing staff to work from home. Now there are some other business things that you have to put in place. How do you judge people who are working from home? How do you judge their performance? And there are different metrics that we now have to put in rather than the ones that we grew up with. So we're looking at offices that are being designed now with collaboration in mind, meaning that in the offices you will find more collaborative space rather than executives or people having, oh, this is my office. Nice leather chairs, great desks, pictures on the wall. That's not the office of the future. The office of the future is about collaboration in terms of getting the work done. My boss in Microsoft sits in a cubicle, doesn't have a fancy office. That's an unheard of thing in the Caribbean, but my vice president in charge of 1,000 people in the region sits in a cubicle. If he needs to have an executive room, he will book a conference room. So it's a different mindset about how you think about getting the job done. Modern meetings, this technology that we're launching or has been launched allows us not to have to take minutes at a meeting anymore. Discussions are being recorded as we talk about them, or we're taking them in electronic note-taking tools, so that the minute everybody walks into a meeting room and they start making notes or doing things on their laptops or their tablets, it gets onto the whiteboard, and when you leave the room and by the time you reach your desk, whatever was written on that whiteboard is now contained in an email in your inbox. So there's no secretary that has to go away and manipulate the minutes of a meeting and then come back 1 week, 1 day later, or 3 weeks later with the minutes of the meeting. Those things are being rethought about how we do that. Obviously, mobility is everywhere. You want to have connectivity in your cars. You want to have connectivity in the airplanes. You want to be able to connect a multitude of devices, whether they be phones, tablets. You just want to be able to have access all the time. That's what this technology is allowing you to do. Now, this is going to be one of my important slides, and I'd love you to pay some attention to it. When we started computer technology many moons ago, we promised people that we would come up with what is called a paperless office. We were going to cut down less trees because we had the computer do all this stuff now. And we also promised that people would be going home earlier because the computer would make your job so much easier. If I were to take a poll from anybody in this room, is there less paper in your office? The answer is probably no. Are you going home earlier because you're using a computer? The answer is probably no. The answer really is that we are doing a lot more now than we're doing. So you have a typical person will probably go through unread emails over 1,000 tweets to answer, 12 meetings on their calendars. This data and the Internet of Things, however, is giving us a lot more information than we didn't previously have. At the Computer Electronics Show in Las Vegas last year, this device was shown where your plant in your office has a chip in it that's judging the moisture control and will send a message to your phone or your text or your watch on your hand and say, I need water. The glass window has a chip on it that tells you that that window is secure or insecure or unsecure as the place may be, as it may be. So when we say the Internet of Things, we're talking about everything that's around you that's electronic can give you a message about what's coming, what's happening. For those of you who were at my seminar last year, I told you that in 2004 we had 0.16 zettabytes of information. In the year 2013 we had 4.4 zettabytes of information. It's expected that by the year 2020 we will have 40 zettabytes per centimeter. Any of the students here know what's a zettabyte? Nobody? Zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes. 1 billion terabytes. And like true technology people, we already have the other unit of storage coming up. It's called a yottabyte. Y-O-T-T-A-B-Y-T-E. And that's going to be 1,000 zettabytes. We have lots of things happening with storage, and that's what I want to talk about right now. Moore's law said that for the next, in every 2 years, that we will be putting more transistors on a chip that we had the previous year. That's why you see every time you buy a new computer, we're talking about the 1.7 or 1.9, 2 gigahertz of chips out there. Because we are following somebody called Moore's law. Charles Moore was the guy who started Intel many years ago. And he said based on this rate of development of chip technology or transistor technology, that's what would happen. He has been proven to be very correct, and the industry is saying that for the next 10 years, we expect Moore's law to still be applicable. Storage. For those of you who used to have to buy a British Encyclopedia Britannica, Collier's, a Rollier's encyclopedia, you now know that storage and the cost of storage has dropped so dramatically that I can walk around with a USB drive in my pocket that could contain all of those encyclopedias and plug them in. I see the day coming when DJs will just be walking around with a USB drive and they plug it into the closest music system and they can continue to do their business. So we're seeing things like Moore's law, we're seeing storage decreasing, we're seeing bandwidth increasing, and we're seeing devices increasing. But what is not changing? This is the rate of growth of all of these things, that storage, bandwidth, all those kinds of things. And the human capability to understand these things is not growing, it's a flat line. That's why my original comment about the next wave of students that we need, professors that we need, would be how do we make use of all this technology that we have with us now. Anybody thinks that there are more than 24 hours in one day? The answer is no. Time is finite. So it doesn't matter how much capability I have. It does not matter how much capability I have. What's not changing, what is absolutely not changing is finite time. There are 24 hours in a day. So we have got to get to the stage as human beings. How do we assimilate all this information that is now presented to us? I said that the other thing that students should be looking at is security and privacy. That's one of the careers that I would love to see more people from Cayman Islands and the Caribbean getting involved with. How do we secure the information that people have out there? The United States is looking for 6,000 network security engineers right now. Guess how much they can find? None. They cannot find the quality and class of people that they want to work on security. Hackers, they employ hackers. Microsoft employ hackers. Google employs hackers. Hacking is not a bad word. It shows that you have a certain level of understanding of the technology and you can get stuff like that. So security is going to become a very big issue for us. And I don't see it decreasing. I see the need for security engineers to be very high on our agenda. So I wanted to play this video for you that shows you some of what I'm talking about in a very live and graphic way. It's about really, you're going to tell me at the end of the video that, George, no, these things are 5, 10 years away. But I want to start the video by telling you that these things are already out of the lab and are being tested now in pilot programs all over the world. It's about two ladies. One is called Kat and one is called Lola. Kat is an independent biologist and Lola is executive oceans and ocean biosystems from Europe. So I'm going to have my engineer at the back. And if I can have can I have the lights off, please, Christoph? Somewhere in the middle. Okay. So there's Coke and popcorn being served at the back of the room after that movie. I want you to think back a little bit about, what are some of the new technologies that you saw there? The moving walls, the pens that are refillable with electronic ink, lots of things like that. And I'm going to stress again. Can we have the lights on in the back of the room, please? And I want to stress that these are not things that are being researched in the lab. Most of these things are live and well today and are being implemented in various laboratories and businesses across the world. So I have a couple more slides on what is my advice for students today. Very happy to see a lot of you in the room. I looked at this slide. I looked at your statement on the wall here at the top that says, the world is learning, keep up. I want to add one line to it that says, for the UCCI students, the world is changing and learning, keep up. I told you about what I think the job opportunities in computer science are going to be for the foreseeable future. They are going to be built around this thing called the Internet of Things, the ability for devices to talk to each other, the ability for devices to talk to the Internet, and the ability for devices to talk to other people, to human beings. So I don't think that even the career called computer science is going to be around for a long time again, because computer science or computing is going to become what I call a utility. IT or computing is going to be a utility. You plug something into the wall and you get all the services. Just like you do with your electric power, just like you do with your subscription television, you pay for what you use, you turn it up when you need more, you turn it down when you need less. That's the way computing is going to be. We will still need the coders and the developers to achieve that. That doesn't mean that we will call them programmers or whatever it is. We will call them by a different name. You'll probably be training today for a career at the university that's not going to exist in the next 5-10 years. When I started my computer science degree at the University of the West Indies many, many years ago, none of the technologies that we learned back then are applicable anymore. Oh, sure, the basic things like logic doesn't change, but the technology itself doesn't exist anymore. That's what's happening to the world. Even this business, I've been doing IT for 35 years now, and I have to keep learning every single day in order to keep abreast of the technology. Education, education, education. It's a constant learning business. You can't walk away from this and say, okay, I've got my diploma, I've got my degree, I've got my master's, I've got my PhD, that's it, I'm done. That's not the answer. It's a constant learning process. Can I have the lights off in the front of the room, please? Just leave the back. Let's have 2 more slides. Okay, great, thanks. So I promised you that I will tell you a little bit about the things that I see that will disappear in our lifetime. And obviously you will have your own top 10 list, but here's mine. The post office, the check. I'm not going to go through them if anybody wants to ask me a question about any one of these, but these are the things that I see will probably disappear in our lifetime. Anybody wants to ask me any question on this? The students like number 10, marijuana bans. Okay. Question, somebody had a question.
Why car drivers?
Sorry?
Why car drivers?
Oh, we're going to get to the stage of driverless cars. Your car is going to get you to your destination. It's going to map your route by GPS. It's going to check traffic, weather conditions. One of the ladies, the young ladies, was doing a presentation before this morning, one of the students, she talked about the Tesla motor car. That's what's happening. So cars don't get into accidents anymore. They're able to sense things in front and take different routes. So when I say driverless cars, that's what I mean, that we'll all be sitting in some mode of transportation that will drive us to our destination. Question?
I just wanted to know, why is music up there?
Good. Music, it's a good question because it's music as we know it today. As we know it, we grew up when we wanted some music, we bought it either on a record, for those of you who've been on the planet for a while, or a cassette or a cartridge, for those of you who've been on the planet for a longer while. But we went from all those technologies to CDs, DVDs, USB drives, play music. But music itself, the way we acquire music is what's going to change. The music itself wouldn't change. A piano is a piano, a guitar is a guitar. The music, the content of how we accept delivery, the content delivery networks from around the world is what's going to change. I no longer have to be sitting next to a device to get the music from that device. So the way we acquire music, enjoy it, is going to change. Now, when I buy a CD, I got 12 songs, and I really wanted one out of the 12 songs. Now I'm able to choose and subscribe to the 11 or 12 that I really wanted to purchase. Question at the back?
Yes, going off topic of this slide specifically, going back to the video, how far away do you think the technology in that video is to becoming as common as, say, a smartphone?
So the cycle is basically, the technology itself has been in the lab for a number of years. It's now out of the lab. How fast technology reaches the man in the street or at a price that he can afford is typically how many vendors, suppliers want to invest in the technology. Let's take an example. Touch screens was, available since the 80s, maybe even before that. It was around. The technology worked fine. When I joined Microsoft in 1990-something, I had a touchscreen device. But nobody was willing at that time to invest to make it cheap enough until Apple decided to put some money into it into the early 2000s. So it depends now of a manufacturer saying, I like this R&D, I'm going to mass produce it. So I think that once the consumer base, and going back to this consumerization of IT question, once the consumer says, I want this, it's happening. If I played you the same type of video from a company called Corning, who makes glass, you will see that they have gone into this smart glass technology and their video. And for those of you who want to look at this video, it's on YouTube. On the presentation that I'll post, you will see, I'll give you the link for the YouTube video for Microsoft, and I'll give you the YouTube video for Corning. Same kind of concept, smart glass. You walk into a house and your presence is recognized. The music that you like starts playing as you walk down the middle of the house. Your photos or things that you want to do. You notice when the lady walked through her home, it sensed that her father was online, and immediately the screen come up with the father, a chat going on. That's where it's going. Question? If there are no further questions,
No, there's one more.
One more?
Why is not Microsoft, Apple, and Google not on that list?
Not on their what, sorry?
Why have you not put Microsoft on the list on the screen there?
You think I should?
Things that will do. Well, why? Microsoft, Apple, Google should be on that list.
No, it's a good question, because basically the companies that have not survived have been the ones that have not been doing R&D. Microsoft as a company, we invest $10 billion a year in R&D. That means that we're preparing for the next generation. Microsoft is, I'm only going to talk specifically about Microsoft. Microsoft has been, opened as a company in 1975. That's traditionally companies like ours last 15, 20 years. If you look back at Compaq, DEC, technology companies that Lotus 1, 2, 3, they all didn't make the more than 15 years presence in the industry because they did not invest in R&D. So I'm going to say that R&D is the answer, that companies that will not be on that list in technology is if they don't do R&D. IBM, the three top companies that invest the most in technology right now. 50, I think, is Apple. Another question here?
I think of the Caribbean in general. Do you have any advice or have you seen any educational facilities that have moved past politics, policies, procedures to get to an environment where we can use ed tech, especially in the classroom?
Education is so much tightly tied to politics in the Caribbean that it's difficult to divorce them both. So let me give you an example, and it's public information, so we could talk about it. Government of Jamaica, for example, decided that they wanted to do 500,000 devices for their classrooms. It was a good political move to announce in the paper the minister handing over devices and stuff like that. And they started purchasing devices. It got to some classrooms, and the teachers said, now what do we do with this? What can we deliver? What learning can we deliver on this? The teachers, they weren't even trained on how to do Android devices because they were cheap. But they could run nothing on them that was fairly close to academia, and the teachers themselves weren't trained on it. So it's difficult in the Caribbean to separate those two things because education is run by a ministry that is run by the government. And that's a link that we've got to separate. I have seen some people that are starting to think differently. Very happy that Microsoft worked with St. Ignatius School here in Cayman Islands to make them what is called a preferred school because they have been able to accept that technological shift and understand that if I'm creating an IT curriculum or I'm creating curriculum, I don't have to do everything myself. There's loads of information out there that people are willing to make available to you that you can keep your curriculum current. And it's not about having the latest copy of Office on your desktop. It's not about that at all. Those are products, those are tools. It's about the whole background. So we can have a separate long conversation on that because the person who runs education in the Caribbean reports to me. So we can talk about that separately. But there are some schools that are changing gradually.
And one last question, sir.
Okay. Why isn't cash a part of your list? Because a lot of us have debit cards and we hardly walk around with cash. And also, can you please explain the things you own? What do you mean by that?
So what was the first one? Cash? Or the check? Most of the American companies have stopped accepting checks, right? Because people who have environment friendly and stuff, that's another piece of paper that they have to scan, track, and pass through their systems, which gets to be very expensive at the end of the day. As you notice, most of the technology companies are now developing what we call electronic payments. You can pay with your phone, so a mobile system, or as you said, your electronic swipe cards. I've seen Coca-Cola machines that will accept Apple Pay on their phone and stuff like that. So we're getting to be that way. It's easier to track currency that way rather than paper or money tracking. So I think that cash will eventually go away. Get back to the Internet of Things comment that I made. I think you're going to have electronic wallets on a chip somewhere in your body. I put my hand on the sensor and it pays my bills. Cash is going to disappear. The check is going to disappear. And there was another one you asked me about. The things that you own, a lot of the things that we grew up with, for the older folks in this room, we had a picture and we put it on the mantelpiece and it was there for everybody to see. Generations, it stayed on the same place next to the grandfather clock or whatever we had in our house. Now, where are most of your pictures stored? The things that you own, the places to store them has changed. So the things that you own now belong to somebody in the cloud. They don't belong to you anymore. Right? Because, as I said, you have no control. Once you put it there, you've now made it public. So even if you may go in and delete a photo from your files, it's still out there because you don't own them. So the things that you own is going to change.
All right. If you would, please thank Mr. Golden for a wonderful presentation.